an original MCM production.
Thank you, President Nancy. Nancy reminded me the other day that we met in 1979. She was just a child at that time, I think. But anyway, I'm here to introduce Tom Shannon, a veteran early-stage investor who was CEO of Waukesha-based Prodessa until his 2009 acquisition by global biotech company GenProbe Inc. for $72 million. He subsequently was one of the co-founders in 2013 of BrightStar Wisconsin Foundation and leads that foundation on a volunteer basis. BrightStar provides early-stage funding to Wisconsin businesses that are very young in their development. Tom can tell you the story about BrightStar much better than I can, so I'd like to introduce Tom Shannon.
Hello, everyone. Nick, thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for coming on out. I know it's a very lazy July Tuesday, and I need to keep your interest, so I'm pulling out all stops. I have a YouTube video, I have prepared remarks, and I have show and tell. And in addition to that, I have some of my BrightStar colleagues in the audience, too, to watch for anybody dozing off. A little higher? How does that? Does that work better? Great. I have George Mosier, one of our co-founders, and Pam Evison, one of our board members, Fred Roche, our business manager, and Dan Matola, one of our officers. So they could be sitting next to you, and if they nudge you or whatever, I'm going to have to call you out. I forgot what a fun group this was. I was just telling the table that, believe it or not, the last time I was here was 1977. I know I don't look that old, but I just came out of college, and my friend Dave DeSimone had me stand up and introduce myself to the group. And I was saying to Nick, well, maybe I'll have to defer my presentation, because you might get sick of me or I would be overexposed. So I hope that's not the case. So anyway, so this week is the 3rd anniversary of BrightStar's founding. So it's really a very important time for us. And over the last 3 years, I've spoken all over the state to dozens of organizations, both individuals and, of course, groups, from Green Bay to Baraboo to Brillion. I mean, I've really been all over. I think, did I hear that Ron Johnson, was he here the other day? I can't imagine being a state candidate. Can you, having to speak 72 counties or something like that? I mean, it's just got to be unbelievable. But I'm now keeping track a little bit of some of the places that I've spoken by sort of tags, like the Renebohm Foundation in Madison was the first place I spoke after we incorporated, or the Dudley Foundation and Rotary Law Firm in Wausau was the furthest north, or in Menasha, the firm is the DiRenzo Law Firm was the coldest. It was 6 degrees. And I think the shortest speech I ever had was Becky Blank, and you guys will remember this, a year and a half ago, or April of a year and a half ago in Dallas, when we lost in the Final Four on that Saturday. Becky asked me to speak to the UW Foundation on Sunday morning. And of course, that was a late game, if you recall. We were all hoarse. Nobody felt like being anywhere in the morning, and it was a 9 o'clock breakfast. And a lot of the UW Foundation people, as you know, are very well heeled. And all these hedge fund guys had their planes waiting, and they were going, wheels up at 10, wheels up at 10. And they looked at me, and I ran through in 8 minutes. I had my presentation done. So that was the fastest ever. And I think I'll be hanging up my microphone, Dan Matola, after this one, because this is 3 years. And if you haven't heard of BrightStar in the 3-year period, then I'm not quite sure how we get the word out. Especially the media in Milwaukee has been very kind to us, and we've gotten a lot of exposure. All right, so before I introduce BrightStar, because it only takes really a few minutes, I'd like to just quickly give you a little show and tell about what is early stage angel investing, early stage investing, startup investing. And that's really sort of the core, the very core of the BrightStar concept of the foundation is early stage investing. And many of you know what that means, but just in case, I want to give you a couple examples. And I don't have a lavalier on. Can you hear this? Does this work okay? So I'm just going to walk a little bit. But here, as an example, see this band? Is this worth anything? Would anybody put any money into this? This is Medical College of Wisconsin. It's esophageal reflux, a band around the throat, right at the cricoid cartilage. You put it to 20 millimeters of mercury and you stop reflux. It's going to be a huge, huge device. But in early stage companies, it's a very risky proposition, correct? Because you have to take that band and you have to engineer it, you have to put it through FDA clearances, you have to get it ready for sale, and it took $1 million in a year to get it into this shape, another $1 million in another year to do clinical trials, and another $1 million in a year and a half to get through FDA before it can even be sold. This is the kind of stuff that's very risky, but if you don't have startup companies, you won't have job creation later on, as an example. Here, infectious disease diagnostics. Most of you, are aware of C. diff or MRSA, influenza, pneumonias. 10 years ago, they were detected with immunoassays, antibodies, not very sophisticated. You could flip a coin 50-50 and get the same result. That's how inexact they were. Company here in Milwaukee, Prodessa, DNA, 100% accurate, technology-laden, high intellectual property. Well, here's another one. So this, can you all see it? It's a little pack, right? It's a little pack. This is a 10-ounce glass of milk. This is a company called Derivative in Marcus Ann, Wisconsin. As you know, with powdered milk, when it reconstitutes, nobody wants to drink it. It's terrible. This is actually a 10-ounce glass of milk. When it reconstitutes, you cannot tell the difference. And they say milk, 500 to 700 miles is about as far as you can transport milk and make it economical, right? So what about third world countries? What about dispensaries? What about the armed services? This can be used all of those places, and it has intellectual property. And what's really neat about this is that 60% of the Asian population is lactose intolerant. And when this is put into this form, a paste form, lactose goes away. So it's a huge, huge market that's not being used currently. Here in Wisconsin, this is being produced. I use my phone here. This is just to remind me. Fetch Rewards. There's a company that we're involved with that is called Fetch. You can take a phone and go into the supermarket aisle and say you're buying Johnsonville brats. When Johnsonville brats come up then, with your phone scanning it, it'll show that Hellman's mustard is on sale or Sheratino's buns, and it'll take all coupons and accumulate them. It really is very, very interesting. But what I like to talk about is a person underlying this, the chief technology officer that was part of the founding of this company. He worked for the NSA in 2001. Do you remember hearing about IEDs? Improvised explosive devices. We all know what those are, right? Have you heard about them recently? I mean, have you heard about them in the last 5 years? And why not? You used to hear almost every week of our soldiers dying with IEDs. This guy came up with technology that not only could tell where the IED was, but it could trace the source of the terrorist who was going to say yes with the phone to go ahead and explode it. And they would then drone. They'd come in, find that person. So not only not only would they see the IED in front of them, but they would know where the telephone transmitter went, call in drones and knock them out. That's why you haven't heard of IEDs recently, or in the last many, many years, because of technology like this. So anyway, early stage investing, startup investing is very, 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 very important. So when we talk then about BrightStar and the BrightStar idea, I like to introduce the idea by asking a question and then answering it sequentially with some thought. The question would be, if all of you at your table were asked, what is it that you wanted for Wisconsin and Milwaukee? And 2, 4, 6, 8 of you got together and decided as a group that if you were asked the question, what do you want for your state and your city? From a macro standpoint, my bet is that you would come up with some kind of thought that was, we'd like to have a great place to live and work. Would you say yes to that? Would you all pretty much nod forward that if you had to have a macro overarching thought about what you want for your city and your state, it would be having a great place to live and work? Well, what does that normally mean? And to most of us, that means high quality, good paying jobs, vibrant economy. And when you think of that, then you think about, well, where are these jobs going to come from? And can anybody quote from me in the last year, year and a half? We repeatedly, in Wisconsin, we repeatedly have a metric that talks about where we are in job creation and job growth. Anybody know what that number is? It's all over the board. Someone? 35th to 50th. We've actually been 50th. I haven't seen us any higher than 35th. And you say, well, why is that? And the Kauffman Foundation, Marion and Ewing Kauffman, which most of you have recognized that name before, they say that all job creation comes with the formation of the early stage companies, which I just gave you some examples of. And so you look at Wisconsin and say, why isn't it happening in Wisconsin? Well, first of all, we have the raw materials, right? We have the raw materials. We are 3rd or 4th in research money coming through our university, $1.2 billion. We're 13th in patent creation. We have governor's business plan contest. There were 280 applicants for that. There's an incubator in Wisconsin called Generator, which you may be familiar with, and the Generator guys had 400 applicants for their 5 slots in this 6-month class. So we have all the raw materials, right? Would we agree? If you think about it like that, we have all the raw materials. What don't we have? So I've been an early stage investor now for 15 years. George, you've been the same. Our group of people have been through this. We know that it's money. We don't have the investment in early stage companies like they do in other states. So you go, okay, if it's money, how do you get that money? And there's 2 ways, right? Public sector and private sector. From the private sector standpoint, there's a group of people called angels. I'm an angel, George is an angel. There's probably 100, what would you say, George, 100 angels in the state? Maybe more, say 200. But there's probably only a dozen or more that are really very active, that have millions of dollars put into this. So angels, from a standpoint of how do you clone angels, it's not very easy. But there are states like Texas, Massachusetts, California that have investors that are willing to put money into early stage companies. We're not those people. We're bricks and mortar, cash flow. We're talking about it at the table here. Cash flow, profits. Very, very few people in Wisconsin are willing to put their money into some of the ideas that I just mentioned to you. So from the private standpoint, it's very hard to clone more angels in the state. Then let's talk about the public side. The public side then is states like Colorado have figured it out. Remember Tom Hefty, he's told me about Colorado. $150 million Colorado has put into the budget for investment in early stage companies. Ohio has $900 million, a company or a group called Jumpstarts, which you may have heard of. $900 million has gone into early stage investing. So there are a few states that from the state standpoint have figured it out. There are a few states that from the private standpoint have figured it out. But that's 5, 6, 7 states. The rest of us are sucking air, right? So anyway, 3 years ago, we incorporated. And about 6 months before that, if you recall, there were sort of 2 events that were important to me. One was the Walker budget had $300 million earmarked for early stage investment, if you recall that, $300 million. And those of us angels were going, yippee, terrific, that's wonderful. And then with the recall, that got skinnied down to $25 million. And then biotech got carved out. I mean, biotech's the lifeblood of the University of Wisconsin. That was one event. The second event was, if you recall, Ab Nicholas donated $50 million to tuition for scholarships for basketball players. Any of you remember that? $50 million. It didn't get a huge bit of hoopla, but it was a huge gift from Ab. And he wanted to give basketball players, as he was one, All-American, University of Wisconsin in '52 or something, tuition to the University of Wisconsin if you were a basketball player. And it sort of was a eureka moment, because for a few of us, we were upset about state government not having earmarked monies, and we were just amazed at Ab's gift. And it's sort of the linkage hit. And the linkage is that we may be a conservative state. We may be a state that doesn't function very well politically and cannot get things done through government. And we're not going to clone ourselves, but we're philanthropic. We're hugely philanthropic. We care about kids. We care about our students. What is better than having jobs for kids when they come out of school if they're educated? What good does it do getting them educated if there aren't jobs? And we as angels were tired of seeing our intellectual property go out of state, seeing our companies go out of state. So, sort of came up with the idea that what if those of us that are angel investors that know how to invest in this economy of early stage got together and we started a foundation. Not a fund, but a foundation. And we put deductible donations into the foundation instead of investment dollars. What if we could do that? So I went to WEDC, talked to Ryan Murray, the Chief Operating Officer, and said, I've got an idea. What if I donate my time for 2 or 3 years to run an organization as a foundation? We get a 501c3. We get people that really know how to invest this stuff, donate their time, and the investment committee. And what if we have donations come into a foundation deductible, not a fund, not an investment, but a deductible donation, and we invest in early stage companies. And when those companies do well, now some won't, they say 8 out of 10 don't do well. Here in Wisconsin, we have a better hit ratio than that. In fact, of the 29 companies that we're involved with, we haven't had one fold yet. But anyway, what if we put that together and got the very philanthropic people in the state of Wisconsin that didn't want to be angel investors, wanted to get money out of their estate. They didn't want to be angel investors, but they care about job creation and they care about our students. Wouldn't they donate to that? And WED said, if you can get that done, we'll give you $300 grand a year for your staff, and we'll help you with the 501c3. So I got on my horse, and George Mosier, Jeff Russenow, Mike Drescher, Jeff Harris, my brother and sister, we got a few of us together. We didn't know if it was going to be 2, 4, 6 people, 8. What does it take to have a credible group of people and a credible amount of money? We all donated at least $500,000, put $4.5 million in the pot, applied for an IRS determination letter, didn't want to wait 18 months because that's how long it takes to look at IRS determination letters. Got both Ron Johnson, got both of our U.S. senators to help us not go to the top of the line from the standpoint of, yes, getting an IRS approval, but fast tracking, which is very appropriate. If you remember 3 years ago, the government shut down for a month. So we had our application in, the government shut down. but we got our 501c3. So that's really the thought process. BrightStar is a foundation, not a fund. We take donated dollars, not investment for-profit dollars, and we're doing some good things. It's 3 years now, as I said. We just had our anniversary. We have about $9 million into our foundation, and we are deploying at about $2 million a year, 14 companies a year the last 2 years. So that's sort of the thought process. It's really as simple as that. And like I said, I've gone throughout the state trying to get foundations to give money to us individuals. It's so interesting. Wausau is probably one of the hotbeds that have really helped us. We have Judd Alexander Foundation, Dudley Foundation, Davis, Dwight and Linda Davis Foundation up there. Our minimum donation is $100,000. Sounds high, sounds sort of silly, but we can only get this done if we have meaningful monies going into the foundation. So as many of you know, I haven't been involved in foundations until 3 years ago. To put it on your balance sheet, 5 years is the longest length of a donation. So that's 20 grand a year for 5 years. People say, well, how'd you get that number? And it's pretty clear that that's the right number, because if we would have said 50, we would have gotten 50s from a lot of people. So we have monies going in from $1 million on down to $100,000. So with that, I'd like to go to the next step to keep your interest, and that's a quick YouTube video. We just added the extension onto the greeting, and this will just give you a little overview. It's 5 to 1 perfect timing. It's a 5-minute video, and then we can take some questions. Thanks. Thank you for your interest in our BrightStar Wisconsin Foundation. I'm Tom Shannon, CEO and President. We incorporated 3 years ago, and 6 months later started putting money into early stage companies. In 2.5 years, we've put $4 million into 29 early stage companies, hopefully creating dozens, then hundreds, and ultimately thousands of jobs. Please take under 5 minutes to listen to 9 of our CEOs who are talking about their experience in the early stage and with BrightStar. Thank you.
With the support of BrightStar, we've been able to build out this great team. We've almost tripled in size in the last 12 months. We've expanded to these great new offices on the Capitol Square. Our pursuit of trying to fix healthcare and build a strong, lasting company in Wisconsin was made possible because we were able to work with a great team at BrightStar, get not only the support we needed, but access to relationships and to other kind of venues that we didn't know possible before. I'm very grateful to be an entrepreneur in this state and have support of a group like BrightStar that recognizes the importance of building in Wisconsin for Wisconsin. Thank you.
BrightStar came to us with funding at a crucial time in our development. We can't thank them enough for being there. More than money, BrightStar was able to provide us with connections to bankers and other investors. They introduced us to customers. They provided connections with people who were connected in the state. Beyond that, BrightStar has been an incredible cheerleader for us. Starting a game-changing business is difficult. Thank you.
Thank you out to the donors to BrightStar. Because of your donation to BrightStar and BrightStar's investment in Stamina, we were able to bridge a gap in funding that allowed us to gain an additional $5 million in funding to support the largest ever study of the metabolism of children with autism. Because of you, we were able to bridge a gap between our EPA funding and also a large $2.7 million grant from the National Institutes of Health. Thank you, BrightStar.
BrightStar investment has allowed us to accelerate our growth, add more key people, including engineering, technicians, and salespeople. The mission we are on is moving manufacturing from England to Wisconsin. And the idea is we have it all moved to Wisconsin with the help of the investment by next year. And I'd like to say thank you to BrightStar for the confidence. Thank you.
Donors at BrightStar, who through their most recent investment in Fetch Rewards have allowed us to expand our operations into this beautiful office here in downtown Madison, Wisconsin, and have allowed us to grow our team from 19 people when we first came in to now being at 36. Thank you again for everything that you have done, and we look forward to continuing to grow and build the ecosystem up here in Wisconsin.
Thank you so much to all you BrightStar donators. Through your donation, we were able to get an investment through the Generator program, which has allowed us to partner with Woodman's Markets, where we're developing an online ordering system and offering local pickup and delivery here in Madison and throughout the state of Wisconsin. Thanks again for your donation.
We received an investment from BrightStar about a year ago. Since that time, we have been able to hire new individuals, developers, project managers. They have been helpful in allowing us to accelerate the development of our products and garner new sales. We are deeply grateful for the funding that BrightStar has provided us. Thank you.
For capital for startups has always been a challenge. BrightStar's investment in the Good Jobs has helped us add both sales and web development talent. Since our launch in January of 2013, when we were a team of just 2 co-founders, we're now a team of 6, and our momentum is taking a great upsurge. Thank you.
The investment that you made in July of 2014 was critical to us closing our Series A round of funding that in turn allowed us to bring a key executive from part-time to full-time, expand our sales force, and also make key investments, critical investments in clinical training. Besides helping our company, your investment is also helping patients. Our product has been shown to decrease hospital admissions by over 60%. It was estimated that for just 50 patients, the net savings to the hospital was $740,000. Your investment helps us make that so thank you very much.
So it's sort of fun to see some of those companies and those faces, and that's really what we're dealing with. All the raw materials are here, we just need the money. So questions, please, go ahead. Yeah, it's almost, well, we do have some convertible debt. Pardon me? Do our investments take the form of equity or debt? And ultimately, it's all equity. There are a number of deals out there today that valuation is troublesome, so it's convertible debt, and it converts at some milestone over some period of time. So we have, so everything converts to equity ultimately, or should convert to equity, but most of it's equity. Third of it might be convertible debt. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, could you just briefly outline the criteria you use in selecting your investment?
Sure, exactly. So number one is job creation in Wisconsin. So if it's not Wisconsin-based, they're not going to stay here, or it's something like pharma, drug creation. You know, you'll find out whether the drug you're working on kills something without killing you. If it does, you send it to Massachusetts and it gets commercialized. There's very little job creation there. So job creation in Wisconsin, and then the same criteria that any really fund would use for what kind of management, what kind of upside, competition, what is that, a competitive advantage, IP position, things like that. So we have and Fred here has some annual reports. There's one at each table. He has some annual reports, but he also has a list of the investment committee also. We have just a terrific 10-person investment committee that makes these decisions, and nobody's compensated. I'm not compensated. The investment committee's not. We have 2 staff members. We also get something called QNBV credits, qualified new business venture credits. So every investment we make, the state basically will give us 25% back. So every donated dollar, more than a dollar goes into investment. And there's companies like Zilber and John Kersey over here that donate space to us also. So virtually it's, you know, efficient to the tune of over 100%. Is there one all the way back? Sure, Zach Brandon, yes. So Zach Brandon, depending on how much time we have, he's front page here. You got it too. We're both doing the same thing. Yeah, so I don't have my glasses ready, but what Zach Brandon's doing, I mean, 25% of new members in the Madison Chamber of Commerce are startup technology-based companies. So Zach was front page yesterday. We just need to get especially more of that thought process here in Milwaukee. It's just not here. It's certainly getting to Madison, and there are other places in the state. But the thought process of, if you have an idea and you want it to get to a 500-person company, it's just not going to get there unless you invest when it's riskier and younger. Question, others? Yes, all the way back. Yeah, so we've decided specifically not to have mission creep. So there's educators, there's vibe creators, there's incubators, there's ideas, you know, incubators. Better left to those groups. If we want, we do two things, or we don't do two things. One is we don't go broad and go outside the deploying of money. If we did that, we'd have dozens of people in our organization, more than we'd want. It wouldn't be very efficient. And the second is we normally don't lead deals. Normally, we add on with one of the other angel groups in the state. So there's about 15 of them that we work with. So they normally do the initial due diligence, have the term sheets completed. We take those, repopulate them, take them before our investment committee. However, having said that, there are some ideas out there that need proof of principle that really it's not necessarily quite investable. And we might put the first $50,000 to $75,000 in a situation like that, rarely. Yes?
What do you plan on doing with the equity? Do you see that as being a future investment to keep the fund going?
Well, yeah, so that's just it. So if you look, we have the oddest balance sheet you've ever seen. It's all investments. It's all positive. So it says cash, you know, $800,000. Program investments, 29 of them, and we keep it at the basis of our investment in each one and showing it. So program investments. When those hopefully go round trip and actually have an exit event, we'll have that money come back to us and we'll just keep repopulating it. You know, our goal is to, with $9 million, we can't do a whole lot. But if we could get this up to 25, 50 million, and after my lifetime and have this thing going and having $100, $200 million or more, we'd go poach companies from other states. But that's the only way we're going to get there, like some of the other states are getting there, through either their for-profit investors or their governments that are putting money towards this. We just can't get it done. Yes?
What's your transition plan for your departure?
Well, I just wrote a letter yesterday, and it went out to our 700 people that are friends of BrightStar, and it just says that I've committed 2 to 3 years towards doing this, and it's been wonderful, and it's not that hard. We're on sort of muscle memory, not quite muscle memory, but it's working very efficiently. So I just committed 2 more years, and at the end of 2 years, if either our couple employees want to report to the board and or we need a part-time executive director, we'll go forward with that. But otherwise, the 7 or 8 founders are involved, and our investment committee is involved, and it really should be able to perpetuate just fine. Anyone else? Last question? That's it? Thank you.
An MCM production.